I'm Bob, and this here is my place.
You're going to get some opinions.
I'm Bob. Would you knock me out, please?
Mixed in with a little news, the latest weather, some sports, and maybe even a little reminiscing.
Got a song from 1962.
And you're almost guaranteed to hear something that's going to make you smile.
Bob, we love playing here tonight.
But if you're not careful, you might even learn a thing or two.
Very interesting.
Live from the studios of Longport Media, it's time for Bob Burns in your afternoon.
We'll talk to Bob.
And now, here's Bob.
All right, we're back. It's a little after 2. On the line, we have Ted Corless, who is a leading insurance litigator in Florida, an attorney. And is your specialty sinkholes, Ted?
Well, you know what? People ask me what I do, and I tell them I beat up insurance companies for a living, and sinkholes give me plenty of opportunity to do that.
That's good. That's good. I like that. I actually work for an insurance company also, but I like to see them get beat up. Now, if I could direct you to the compliance officers, I'd be much happier. But that's just me.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, you know, my motto is to ask for forgiveness because it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission any time of the day. So tell us a little bit about Ted Corless.
Well, you know, I'm originally from Missouri, and I have spent about the last 20 years representing both sides of the aisle. I've represented big insurance, but I've also spent some time representing big tobacco on the Philip Morris side of things. And now I also write a very active blog addressing insurance and social issues called newsmunchies.com.
Newsmunchies.com, huh? That sounds pretty interesting. What's the latest subject been on newsmunchies.com?
Well, I've had an opportunity to do a number of interviews on Al Jazeera America, NBC, and a number of Fox affiliates. So I figure if I can be on both Al Jazeera and Fox, then I'm doing the right thing. News Munchies writes a lot about, we write a lot about social issues. Right now, the big issue that's hitting Florida, but is a national issue, is the issue of cannabis legalization and medicalization. So that's something that's very popular right now.
Is that like legalizing pot?
That's right. That's the stuff.
Well, I think we should do that in the state of New Jersey because I think if we wait too much longer, everybody's going to legalize it. It's going to be just like gambling. This is the opportunity to make some money in as far as taxes are concerned. That's my opinion, but
I agree with you.
Okay, cool. All right, so the premise of your phone call has to do with the Corvette Museum that swallowed 8 irreplaceable Corvettes. Now, I have a Saturday show called Your Neighborhood Garage, and it's actually an automotive show. And we were working on a list that we thought should rather go in the hole other than that, and it started out with a Prius.
Right. Well, I stood by and watched an Isuzu go down one time, and it went about 30 feet into the hole. And I don't think it was in a big hurry to chase after it.
No, in Isuzu,
the hole spit it back.
Yeah, the hole said, "Get that thing out of here!" Right? Yeah.
Right.
So,
well, you know what? One of the issues with when these cars go in the holes, especially obviously the Corvette Museum is a little bit different, but when you've got just a traditional street vehicle, you have to be concerned about the gas tank, because if the gas tank pierces and you're right there in an aquifer area, you can contaminate entire neighborhoods with gasoline.
Well, I guess that's true, isn't it? Yeah, I didn't think about that. How deep was this hole in the Corvette Museum anyway? Do you have any idea?
I don't think they've actually measured it. I think the depth to limestone was approximately 70 feet down.
Wow.
And the sinkhole begins at the limestone level, so I would suspect it's probably close to 100 feet deep.
Yeah. Now, I'm not sure. I've never really heard of sinkholes in the state of New Jersey. Is it something that's indigenous to just certain parts of the country?
It tends to be in the central and southern states, although you do see a lot of sinkhole activity in Pennsylvania. But that has to do more with the caves that exist in that area, because those caves are all made of limestone, which is the primary focus of sinkhole activity.
Just in case you hear another voice, the president of Longport Media, Dave Koski's here with me.
Very good. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
He's actually the one that gave us the information about you and to contact you. He tries to keep he tries to give us direction. We don't usually pay attention to him, but he gives us some direction once in a while that we accept. And you were one of them. So
I appreciate that.
He says that the sinkhole probably wouldn't take the ultimate driving machine. He's a BMW guy, but that's okay.
And I happen to be. We have other things in common then, because I happen to drive a BMW as well.
Oh, okay. So, I'm outnumbered. See, I drive a 25-year-old Cougar, so what do I know? I'm not smart enough to have a new car. So,
Right, I understand.
all right. So when you want to go through the process of a sinkhole, and I've seen it in a couple of different places, and it's a real scary thing. And it's a big deal in Florida, too, isn't it?
It's a very big deal, and it's something right now that the legislature is going out of its way to try and screw up even more. We were one of the few states starting in 1989 to actually offer insurance coverage for sinkhole activity. But since about 2005, over a couple of legislative sessions, Florida has started to eliminate or dilute sinkhole coverage because the claims can be catastrophic, and the Corvette Museum is a great example of that. The other state that has coverage and insurance policies mandated is Tennessee. But the sinkholes in that area are not as catastrophic as you saw at the Corvette Museum. But it's, again, one of those areas where, those are one of the states where it's very, very common.
And when these things open up, you say it goes right to the limestone layer? Is that how deep it goes?
It does, yes. The easiest way to describe how a sinkhole occurs is to think for a moment about the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon was formed because water eroded the surface area of the ground over millions of years and created this enormous cavern. Sinkholes do the same thing, but they do it upside down. They start at the limestone level that's anywhere between sometimes 25 feet down all the way, sometimes we see it at 100 to 150 feet here. And as the limestone layer starts to dissolve, holes open up underneath it, and then when the limestone finally breaks apart, then the soil moves into those holes, causing these enormous surface features.
And how do they possibly fill these things in?
They make every effort they can to use a combination of liquid cement as well as some new products that are using a polyurethane product. You are fighting against Mother Nature in a lot of ways because you're going back and filling up these areas with material that is not necessarily going to stay in one place before it solidifies. We see sinkholes sometimes that open up here where the actual to repair the sinkhole is what triggers the catastrophic event. That happened just a couple of months ago here where when they were trying to pour the concrete into the hole, it added so much weight to the area around the home that it took out almost 6 houses in the area.
Wow. And
it triggered this chain reaction.
Now, I sell homeowners insurance, and I know that there's every caveat under the sun in there to prevent them from paying any kind of claims whatsoever. What happens with this sinkhole?
What the problem that you have with the sinkhole coverage in Florida is that most of the sinkholes that you see are not those that would end up being the subject of a radio program. Most of them are more chronic, where they'll cause settlement to the perimeter of a project, or it will cause cracking in flooring or walls and things like that. And then the dispute ends up popping up as to whether or not that is truly sinkhole activity or the results of poor construction or other soil problems that many states have. Too much organic in your soil, or you might have clay that can cause expansion and contraction. And that issue is ubiquitous in the United States. It's all over Texas, Missouri, Louisiana, where you've got a lot of organic material in the soil. And the insurance companies obviously they were getting hit pretty bad because sometimes it's very difficult to diagnose whether or not right near a project. If it's a building or if it's a car wash, or a home or a car wash or a hospital, we've seen them there, and it's a big problem down here.
All right, so it says here that in Kentucky, one of the last pieces here on the points from talking points, since Kentucky does not provide coverage for sinkhole loss, the museum and General Motors cannot make claims against sinkhole insurance for this situation. The whole state of Kentucky doesn't have sinkhole coverage?
In fact, the homeowners policies in that area contain an exclusion for earth movement. And the earth movement exclusion specifically includes losses associated with sinkhole activity, meaning that it's not just that if you see these giant surf holes that open up, a lot of times sinkhole activity will just cause a movement of somewhere, a couple of inches near a home. and that can cause catastrophic damage. You drop a stem wall 3 inches and watch what happens. I mean, you'll massive cracks. But under the earth movement exclusion and the standard policies in Kentucky, there's no coverage available for it.
Wow. Insurance companies are pretty powerful in Kentucky, aren't they?
That's right. Well, to give you kind of my own personal story, I represented 4 of the 5 largest insurance companies in the state of Florida. Well, I started representing policyholders in 2012, and I was building a home with my wife here in Tampa, and we just out of sheer paranoia hired a geotechnical engineer to conduct testing at our home site, and they found 2 8-foot caverns right where our living room and our bedroom were to be placed.
Get out.
And the estimate for the repairs for just a single-family home, which was not an enormous home, it was a good-sized home, but not enormous, it was going to be approximately $300,000 worth of concrete to fill the holes.
Oh, my gosh. What did you do?
Well, good thing being a lawyer is we seemed to work it out with the construction company. They bought back. They paid us all of our closing expenses, and then guess what they did? They went ahead and built our house anyway.
Oh, jeez. Knowing full well that it was over top of 2 sinkholes.
That's right, and I suspect there's a definition in my future at some point. I don't know.
That's disgusting, isn't it? That's disgusting. All right, listen, Ted, I want to put you on hold for a minute. We need to take a commercial break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk more about this, all right? We're with Ted Corless. He's an attorney in Florida. He deals in sinkholes. That's better than a lot of other stuff, I guess, but we'll be back in just a couple minutes, Ted. If anybody out there wants to ask a question, the phone number is 927-1100, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
News Talk 1400, WOND.
Bob Burns and Your Afternoon continues on News Talk 1400, WOND.
All right, we're back. We're talking with Ted Corless. Ted Corless is an attorney in Florida, and his specialty is sinkholes. I have to admit, though, Ted, I've been reading this blog of yours about the legalization of marijuana in Florida. You want to talk a little bit about that?
I'd love to. I just did a debate yesterday with representatives. There are a lot of people who are coming out against, the individual right to use cannabis for medical or recreational purposes.
What I read here is that you're going to have the state's going to be able to vote on it, right? Is it to vote for recreational or just medical?
They're starting out with medical. There's a ballot initiative that obtained about 650,000 signatures, putting it on the ballot. The GOP is very fighting the issue down here, in large part, I think, because I think the Democrats are using this as a wedge issue to get people to the vote in 2014. The governor's race is very much a toss-up between Rick Scott and former Governor Charlie Crist. Crist was a Republican, been an independent, now a Democrat. And, one of the things I always say about that is if you want to know the difference between a Republican, a Democrat, and a Libertarian, the Republican has a concealed weapon permit, the Democrat has a medical marijuana card, and the Libertarian has both. And so they're trying to figure out whether they can use this to get people to vote, to get the youth vote out in 2014 and off your election.
All right, so it's just for the medical marijuana. It's not for the recreational use, though. Do you see that too far in the future? The recreational use?
I lost you for just a second there. Please ask me that again.
Do you see recreational use becoming an issue in the near future?
I'm sorry, Bob. I tell you what, I'm going to...
Okay, you're drifting in and out. So
yeah. Okay, there you go. You're back. Sorry about that.
Do you think that the recreational use will be up to a vote or up to an issue in the state of Florida soon?
I don't, actually. I don't think the recreational will be available for quite some time. I think everyone uses these so far. If you look at the 20 states plus D.C. that have medical cannabis, the most of those states obviously started out as medical, with California back in 1996. Now we just have 2 states, Colorado and Washington, that have passed recreational bills and have apparently reporting enormous success in tax revenue with their social ills.
Yeah, except the Girl Scouts won't let them sell cookies outside of the marijuana stores anymore.
So I saw that picture.
That was pretty good. All right, let's talk a little bit more about this about the sinkhole thing. What relief can you provide a homeowner in any one of these states that you're able to represent them in if they have a sinkhole that occurs at in their property? What relief do you provide?
What I've been able to do during the time period that I've been involved in these, and again, as I mentioned, I spent about 10 years representing insurance companies on this issue, involved on as high a level as the actual drafting of the policy language, or even involved in the legislation that changed the laws associated with sinkhole claims. I've trained over 500 claim representatives on how to adjust sinkholes. And for policyholders, I'm able to provide them either in sinkholes or hurricanes or water losses or theft claims or arson allegations, really challenging insurance companies on the denial of any of these claims.
Generally on claims like this, it's an automatic denial, and if the people go away, they just go away. It's not until they begin to battle that they actually acquiesce to paying claims. Isn't that true?
It is very much true. A lot of times we see insurance companies devoting more time to the litigation of the claims than the proper, comprehensive claim handling, simply because they are playing the numbers of how many of these claims will end up in litigation. Sinkhole claims can be especially complicated because the insurance issues are complex, sure, but the engineering associated with the identification of sinkholes or with the repair protocols that you might use can make these pretty three-dimensional, which is one of the reasons why I've enjoyed, the many years that I've worked with them.
Now, what made you go from the dark side to the empire? I'm sorry.
Without identifying any particular client, because I don't want them complaining, my overall impression was that a lot of insurance companies were letting the accountants run the claims.
Okay. And
they were not really examining the interests of the insureds or examine the cost-benefit in terms of trying any of these cases all the way to a jury. I've tried dozens and dozens of these cases in front of juries, and they're very complicated with the science. And so I felt that I had a very positive impact on the claims when I was a defense attorney because I helped train so many people on the proper insurance claims generally and specifically on sinkhole claims. But now what I see are a lot of people, especially older people in Florida, who have claims that are meritorious, but the insurance companies are playing games with what they'll cover and what they won't. Let me give you an illustration. Most of the coverage down here doesn't apply unless the house literally falls in the hole. If the Corvette Museum were in Florida and they had the coverage provided under Florida law, the claim would be denied. And the reason for that is the thing is still standing there.
Oh, okay.
Even though there is a hole that gobbled up 8 of their cars.
Uh-huh.
And that's really what, I don't know if this was reported up there, but they actually had a death associated with sinkholes last year.
No, I didn't hear that.
Gentleman, yes, he was actually just sitting in his living room, and the bottom of the foundation dropped out, and he fell into what is believed to be about a 35-foot hole, never to be found again.
Wow.
And that particular claim, had it been adjusted under the current law, would have been denied because the home was still standing.
Uh-huh.
Literally, the house has got to collapse to the point where it's being condemned by the state authority.
Were you involved in that claim?
We were not.
Okay.
We were not. But we have other homeowners we've represented we had one where there was a 36, 50 feet deep that had opened up in the front yard, took out the Isuzu I mentioned earlier,
uh-huh.
and the home was literally teetering over it. The Insurance Corporation, the so-called public insurance company down here, originally denied the claim. I got involved.
Uh-huh.
we were fortunate that no one was injured. But over the hole, the 50-foot was being a little girl.
Yeah, we're kind of losing you for a little bit there, Ted.
Okay.
You kind of disappeared there for a second. All
okay.
Right, let me ask you about this Corvette hole now. What do you? How are they going to get these Corvettes out of this hole? What do you think the process is going to be?
They're going to have to use some kind of crane system that is can be far away from the property. The reason for that is that if they put heavy equipment right on the edge of the sinkhole, they're actually adding stress to the local conditions. And, in fact, they could lose the equipment into the hole. Happens all the time. And so it's got to...
Well, I guess that was... I guess his phone must have turned off. We lost Ted Corless. So why don't we just take a break, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes. If we can make contact with Ted, we'll have him back on. If not, we appreciate him coming to the phone today. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
News Talk 1400.
Bob Burns and Your Afternoon continues on News Talk 1400 WOND.
All right, we're back. Ted Corless is back on the line with us. He's an attorney in Florida. And, well, actually, you know, what I'd really like you to talk about is the non-lawyer lawyer. I think your story is pretty cool here. I spent a few years as an investigator for a plaintiff law firm, and I was surprised at what happens behind the scenes. And, I figured out many times if somebody just said, geez, I'm awfully sorry, it would have ended everything. But, it was.
I agree.
So tell us about the non-lawyer lawyer.
When I decided to open my own practice, I left a very large law firm that had offices in 11 countries. And what I observed was really the commoditization of the legal practice. Rather than providing people professional services, it became this leveraging issue where the clients would be presented a very experienced, skilled lawyer who would prepare a protocol or a strategy for a particular legal issue. But then later, they started to dumb down the project as they brought in, people with less and less experience. The clients then just become entrenched in these lawsuits that seem to go on for decades. Or I'm exaggerating, but they would just go on interminably.
Right.
What I actually found was that when we slowed the practice down dramatically, started taking fewer clients, we actually were able to charge more per hour. We had more satisfied clients, and we had to do zero marketing because people knew the difference. They could see the difference between other lawyers or had heard other stories about how lawyers had drugged things out. And bringing things back to that, trying to get more of a personal relationship with my clients has been considerably more satisfying, and it's been very profitable. And we're going to keep trying.
Well, it says, you talked earlier about it. You represented big tobacco, you represented big insurance, and now you went from the dark side. You went right to the right to you're with Princess Leia and Luke.
That's right. Well, the fair thing to say about that is that not to say that the people who represent individuals as opposed to corporations don't have their own skeletons in the closet, because they're especially when you see issues associated with insurance claims. If it's a dispute where I'm representing a homeowner whose pool collapsed because a contractor made an issue and we're now filing a claim against the policy of the contractor, and we're doing that pro bono, or if you're working with contractors who are willing to give any opinion imaginable simply so that they can be paid a consulting fee, it becomes this game of liar's poker between the respective professionals. It can be very frustrating.
I've been there, seen that, and done that. I used to sit in court and I hear people testifying on a case that I'd worked on, and I'd say, how can they even say that? How can they even believe what they're saying? How can they stand there and do that? Don't they afraid of lightning striking them dead or something? But yeah.
Oh, I know. Well, I mean, some of these engineers are charging $400, $800 an hour,
right?
And when you involve that kind of money, people's morals, people's ethics and standards start bending considerably. And all they have to do is lie once. And if they get away with it one time, then they figure they can do it over and over and over again.
That's pretty much how I got started as in the business as an expert. I had a lawyer that came in and rented my garage, and all I did was the grunt work. I took the wheels and stuff off the car, and they had an engineer that came out of New York City. And after about 2 hours, I finally said to the lawyer's investigator, I said, "When's this Nimrod going to tell you what the problem was?" He said, "Do you know what it is?" I said, "It's obvious to me as it knows on my face." I said, "Was he going to wait till the rest of the car's taken apart?" And that's what got me started. But it was it's been a lot of fun. I do a lot of automotive stuff. But anyway, tell us about what's that?
Go ahead.
No, I was tell us about your family.
I am very fortunate to have a beautiful family who has supported me through the entire process of, building 2 law firms, because I did. I started out as a solo practitioner with the assistance of my wife, who answered the phones. When we were starting out in the firm back in 2002, we began the process of adopting a little girl, and that process took a very long time until 2009, when we adopted Thea from Hunan, China.
Wow!
And now she's just a beautiful child. We just absolutely adore her. And it was around that time period that I felt that the corporate life was a bit much. I had grown a solo practitioner office to 14 attorneys, and with an additional 20 person staff to support that, and 10,000 square feet. And I suddenly found myself being very interested in drinking large quantities of single malt scotch. And so now I've been doing a fair amount of media interviews about social issues and putting some money back into the community. And we're very big here. My family and I are very big into veterans issues, supporting people that are coming back from Afghanistan, and those seem to be the ones that we see the most, helping them integrate back into society, and that's where we put our extra resources. But my wife and Thea, and my wife Christine and my daughter Thea and I love to travel, just the 3 of us, and we've got some really fun trips coming up soon, so we have a great time.
And you're quite a cook?
I am, actually. Lots of red pepper that you'll find here with Cajun Creole. We do a lot of that, and my roots are in Missouri, and we know a fair amount about barbecue in northwest Missouri, so I brought some of that down here.
I tease I spent some time in Missouri myself, and I said it's actually misery, because in the wintertime it's frozen mud, and in the summertime it's mud. So
you get the absolute most horrible August. It's so hot, and then in the winter, February especially, can be absolutely amazingly bad. But we have our own issues down here with if you get lonely up there, Bob, I could send you a box of mosquitoes, because we have a fair number of those running around.
We have enough of our own. We get those good in the summertime. So, what do you see? What do you see in the future for what you're going to do? What continues on with you?
I think there's always going to be a place for me to resolve issues between insurance companies and policyholders about providing proper coverage for issues that they face. I was very proud to represent State Farm, for example, for more than a decade, and was very proud to be one of their lawyers. I would tell you that State Farm has, as someone who's been behind the scenes, they literally go out of their way to do the right thing for insurance, for their insureds. And that, I think, to me, always illustrated that there's a lot of sense to be had from making the right choice for your insureds. I think that, unfortunately, though, that most of the other insurance companies out there don't make those kinds of choices, and as long as they make bad choices, there's going to be room for guys like me.
We have a caller with a question. We have Bernie from Brigantine. Bernie, you're on with Ted Corless. Go ahead.
Ted Corless, I wanted to turn the radio down. I wanted to tell you, see, my daughter was the vice president of a big insurance company in New Jersey for a while, and she used to have trouble with the lawyers until she straightened them out. What she done is, a lot of lawyers who try to make a big case out of nothing instead of offering the money right away and getting it over with,
Sure,
and,
sure. One of the things
she used to solve as many cases as a lot of the lawyers did by just making a good offer. In other words, if you figured they would get maybe $100,000 or something like that or more in all the court costs and lawyers, she would say, offer them $70,000, and she'd make them do it and settle the case. And she saved the company an awful lot of money, you know. And I was wondering if you found out anything like that happen with you. And I have another question to you.
That's a great question. What I discovered is there has to be a balance because and the insurance companies need to assess the liability they're facing very early in the process. And I think most of the time, if they'll make that assessment and they're reasonable with their insureds, most of the time the insureds will respond positively to that. Unfortunately, what happens sometimes is that when you get those quick $75,000 payouts, there's also a body of lawyers that say that their clients' claims can start getting less and less valid and still get those payouts. And when things get out of balance, then that's when you'll see more and more fights go all the way. Right now, in the area that I practice, we see it very much out of balance in favor of the insurance companies who are really holding the insured's feet to the fire, even on some of the smallest, minuscule disputes, $10,000, $20,000, but they'll spend $100,000 to defend their position.
Wow. You say another question, Bernie?
Yeah, and I used to help, I'm an ex-business agent, retired, and I used to help my daughter out because they used to come, like you have a minority in there, and they would think that they didn't have to work and all that kind of stuff and all. And I told my daughter I should just do like I used to do in the union. Just tell them, you either work, I'll replace you. And, well, you can't do that, so I'll replace you with another minority. Now, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And she straightened them all out and worked pretty good. But I want to tell you this. You might get a kick out of this. You always, a business agent is always a business agent. So I told my daughter, she's sitting down in the chair, and I'm telling her, I said, you're lucky with that minority stuff. It wasn't for that. I said, man, you wouldn't be nowhere. Boy, she raised up out of the chair without even moving her legs, And she started hollering, I represent, that was something like 17 or 7 lawyers and all this kind of stuff, men lawyers and women lawyers and all this kind of stuff. She's going on and on and on. And then she stopped. She said, you're still working at your game, ain't you? I said, yeah, I always want to see if I can get management out of whack.
There you go, Bernie. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Take care. All right, Ted, this has been an interesting conversation. We're going to have to check in with you again in the future to see what else is going on down in Florida. I've been looking through your newsmunchies.com. That's your blog, right? All kinds of cool stuff on there.
That's right.
And it's been great. Charlie Crist, that really cracks me up. He was a Republican, he was an independent, now he's a Democrat, huh?
Right, and I don't know if you look through the blog, you'll actually see I had an opportunity to meet with him a couple of weeks ago. And, it's not a criticism that's unique to him. It's more unique to just about most of the people that we're seeing run on both a state and national level. And that is that I hear these people. I get an opportunity doing some media work to interview these people, and nobody has a plan for anything. Everything is this cult of personality. And I think that what we'd rather hear is the plan, and let's argue the plan rather than the person. And that way, when we know the plan hasn't been executed, we know what the problem is. But all these guys is just, what I'm hearing from Charlie Crist is you should vote for me because we need to get rid of Rick Scott.
Right.
Not necessarily, not necessarily why.
Why, yeah.
I'm hopeful that he will come up with some positive ideas because Rick Scott has been, in my opinion, a real disaster, especially in the area of drawing new insurance companies to the state of Florida and the mismanagement of the public insurance company, Citizens Property Insurance.
That's a shame. That's rough. We had an automobile situation in New Jersey back in it was the 70s and the 80s when there were people that couldn't get insurance, and we had our own Obamacare for automobile insurance that finally by the September of 1992 had a $3.3 billion deficit that it had to deal with. And, it's once the government gets involved in insurance, I think we have a problem.
Well, here, Citizens has, I think, estimates close to $15 billion in surplus.
Oh, my gosh.
Our problem is they got the money, they just won't spend it on their insured.
Well,
what they're saving it for.
That's rough. Ted, I appreciate you, Ted, coming to the air today. Ted Corless, attorney. And what town are you? You're in Tampa, Florida, right? Tampa, Florida?
We're in Tampa, Florida, Hillsborough, County, but we find ourselves all over the state. We go where the insurance disputes are, wherever they may be.
You have another website other than newsmunchies.com?
Yes. News Munchies also will connect you through my law firm's website, which is corlessbarfield.com. Or I tell people, if you want to find me, just type my name, Ted, and the word sinkhole, and see what happens.
That's a testament. That's a testament. Ted Sinkhole, and your name pops up.
Everywhere.
That's cool,
everywhere.
Ted. I appreciate you coming to the phone today. Thank you very much. Ted Corless, Tampa, Florida, attorney extraordinaire. Ted Sinkhole. And Google, you get him. Thanks, Ted. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, that's Ted Corless. He's an attorney down in Florida, does a lot of sinkhole stuff, and that was the basis for that was because of the sinkhole that sucked up 8 Corvettes in Kentucky. And how about that? Kentucky, the sinkholes are not covered by insurance in Kentucky. Imagine that. That's some interesting situations there. So it was pretty cool talking to him. We're going to be back in the 3 o'clock hour. We're going to be wide open, and we'll see what's on your mind. If you want to give us a call, it's 927-1100. I got a lot of stuff